Moshiach and the Mizbeach. I was trying to understand the central focal point of the energy, the source of energy, is Evan Shishir. But the Mizbeach is, what is the relationship between the Mizbeach and Evan Shishir?
Because Evan Shishir is Kesser, and that is the source of everything. Mizbeach is the Or HaChozer, it's the Neshama is coming back. So Kesser encompasses everything, the source of everything. The Mizbeach is the place of service. You don't sit on the king's chair while you serve the king. You sit before the king and you serve the king in front of him. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. You mentioned that at the time of the future temple that there will be a unification of opposites. So how will that happen? Will it be a peaceful coexistence? Will it because each of those elements are at peace within themselves and there isn't a need to dominate?
Well, Rambam Maimonides in the closing chapters of Mishnah Torah, his code of law, in the laws of kings, Malachim, defines for us the era of Moshiach. And he explicitly quotes the well-known verse in Isaiah that the wolf will dwell, wolf will dwell with the lamb, and so on and so forth. And there he says that this is chidah, this is a metaphor for the way that Israel will dwell with Rish'ai Umois Ha'olam, with the wicked of the nations of the world, namely that they're not going to change their intrinsic nature, but are going to dwell in peaceful coexistence with Israel. And I would say that we can see the beginnings of this well on the way. I mean, just the Gashmias, materially, we do see over the last 60 years how, despite the continuing enmity of the nations for Medinat Yisrael, despite the daily tsaras that Israel gets, not only from the UN, obviously, but from her closest allies of Britain and America, we do nevertheless see that Israel is one of the key places in the whole world. I mean, everyone knows that Israel is a key player. Now that shows how meshed in Israel is to the world economy. Unfortunately, Israel is exporting arms all over the world, and that is not part of the Messianic vision. Israeli high-tech is the greatest, not the greatest in the world. So we see that on the level of Gashmias, the world is getting integrated in with Israel. Now, in terms of what I spoke about just a little earlier, the end of my presentation about speaking to the Gentiles, I'm not just getting up out of nowhere, Joe Schmo, and saying, well, let's talk now to the Gentiles. I'm saying this because I have daily people turning to me through email from every part of the world who are Gentiles, who are craving and longing for Torah. And what that means, and these are people who are self-declared ex-Christians, particularly, but not only. These are Gentiles who are looking for Torah Yisrael, Torah Moshe. Now I have rabbinic sanction in Yerushalayim from Rabbi Yoel Schwartz, who is second to Rabbi Adam Steinsaltz in the Sanhedrin that Rabbi Adam Steinsaltz is president of, to seize this opportunity to go ahead with it, to speak to the nations about Torah Yisrael as it relates to the nations. Now this is a sign that neshamas out of the neshama reservoir of the nations are looking for cooperative existence as opposed to what we've had for 2,000 years of hostility. And I'm not talking about people who want to become Gerim. These people are not necessarily seeking to become Ger Tzedek. They are seeking to remain Gentiles, but to derive their teaching about the nature of the one God from Torah Yisrael, from the Kabbalah, and from Hasidus. So that, I think, before I spoke about Israel's economic position, the same is true of Jewry worldwide. The Jews are like among the economic leaders of the world always. But I'm talking now about Ruchnius, at the spiritual level, that our Torah is actually spreading out to the nation.
Why do you think the Arab rabbis is of such power today in Israel? And your Israel. How do you think it's going to play itself out as the final sort of shift?
Well, for one thing, in Likutei Moharan, Torah Yud Ches, in the first Chelek, Reb Nachman speaks about the concept of the Tzaddik, who at the time of the Charon Af, the time of the idolatry, he hides his face. And he does not want to lead the world. And so that is on the level of the tzaddik. Now we find, if you just look at Jewish history, the history of since the state of Israel, just take a look at it, the state of Israel was not able to be set up without the Shomrei Torah. Ben Gurion had to join with the Shomrei Torah. You know, when they set up the state, there was a whole argument about will they put into the Declaration of Independence any reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the secularists wanted no reference whatever, and finally they put in the expression Sur Yisrael. And Ben Gurion had to compromise with the Shomrei Torah because he wouldn't have been able to set up the state without them. And there was, from the beginning of the state, something called, known in Hebrew as the status quo, the status quo, which was roughly the balance of power between the Shomrei Torah and those who were not Shomrei Torah at the beginning of the state. This covered things like marriage, it covered things like which services will be available to the public on Shabbos. It covered various aspects of how Jews are going to coexist when some keep the Torah and some don't. Well, now, since the state of Israel, you can trace historically how basically the Shomrei Torah opted out of the running of the state. They've certainly opted out of the state's foreign policy. You have look at all the coalitions back in before many people here could even remember, in the times when the Labour Party were in power. They always had in their coalitions the Agudat Yisrael. That was before there was a Shas, and Agudat Yisrael is sitting there, and these guys are doing all kinds of stuff. Like 1967, along comes Moshe Dayan, and immediately after he captures the Temple Mount, he goes straight and gives the keys back to the Arab Waqf. The first thing he does, he gives the keys back to the Jewish National. I mean, a complete lunatic, an insane, totally crazy Yid goes and does this. And the Shomrei Torah is sitting there, nobody's saying anything. And step by step, the Shomrei Torah have allowed the Israeli Supreme Court, which is dominated by Kofrim at the Korsim, Chilonim, to basically chip away step by step at the status quo to the point we've reached today, where last Thursday, in the middle of Yerushalayim, you have the Gay Pride March with the Shofetet, the judges of the Supreme Court, which is completely against the halacha. Rambam states clearly that you do not have women occupying positions of public trust in Torah life. So you have this conceited ignoramus Shofetet who says that it is important for Jerusalem to have the Gay Pride March every year, and you heard not a word from the political Shomrei Torah. They have opted out. They said we can't fight it anymore. Why have they allowed this to happen? Do I see any signs of it changing? Frankly, at this point, not according to the political mechanisms. It can't come from within. It's got to come from the Jewish people, the Shlom Emunah Yisrael, the poor, downtrodden masses of Israel who still believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Eretz Yisrael, to let these scales drop off their eyes and to see the Kolovim, who are the leaders of this generation, for what they really are, and it's just a matter of no longer putting any faith in them. And as people's eyes are opened, a government can only remain in power if it enjoys the confidence of the greater part of the population.